This video hurts to make in sharing my thoughts on the new Sony A7C because from what it's trying to achieve and move forward, I should be 100% celebrating it. And while I do respect and appreciate what it's trying to achieve, it makes me sad as an APS-C fan of hybrid mirrorless shooting that Sony are basically trying to kill off their APS-C line. And for sure, the A7C is the biggest first sign of this if we had any doubts of this in the past. Hi, Ben from Lover of Tech. If you enjoy videos like this, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you're part of Team TLS, the Tech Lover Squad, so you don't have to miss any future videos on the channel. From the outside looking in, let me start with all the things I really like and appreciate with the A7C and what it's trying to do here, especially for someone like myself who 80 to 90% is shooting way more videos than I am photos. Firstly, truly unlimited recording on basically all the key and internal recording modes without needing an external recorder. Next is the use of the Z-type battery, and anyone who knows that battery life from those batteries are amazing on the Sony hybrid cameras. Next has to be the overall body design for what it's trying to fit into that body. And yes, it might sound strange, but it's basically the size of the Sony A6600 body, but thicker and personally a bit more well thought out in the design. And what I mean by that is the use of, firstly, USB Type-C and not that ancient micro USB port. Having a headphone port and mic port that don't block the fully articulating flip screen, which, like I just mentioned now, the same flip screen from the beast of a camera, the Sony A7S III, which finally gives us confidence that Sony is really listening and moving into a much better body design for their users who have honestly been wanting this for the longest time. The SD card slot, thank goodness, it's not in the same place as the battery slot and it's located on the left side of the body with all the other ports such as, okay, although not my favorite when it comes to what the port is, but it makes sense for the body size, the micro HDMI port, etc, etc. The doors for the ports are not the old flappy in the way mess from before and give a good clearance away when open. And the base of the tripod mount has a good location and distance from the battery door. And these are the small details that make the overall body design so good for what they are trying to fit, which is the last and the most important and crucial mention to this camera, which is the 24 megapixel full frame sensor, which in effect is the same sensor as the A7 III, but with new improvements to autofocus to bring it up to speed with cameras such as the A6600 as well as the A7R IV, etc, etc. Now again, as you can see in this video, I don't have the camera, and there's so many other people that had the camera way before the announcement and have dropped great reviews that you can go and watch to have a much more detailed outtake and intake of what the camera is. I'm just basically sharing my thoughts on the clear message Sony are sending and also some of the concerns I have with the A7C looking from the outside in. Now, there's some missed opportunities with this camera, which some are understandable, but others just really make no sense when I'm looking at it. I will give them a pass on the use of the micro HDMI, especially for achieving a full frame hybrid mirrorless camera with basically no overheating and unlimited recording for that size, but not using the new menu system with the full touch functionality from the A7S III is just meh, and honestly makes no sense to me at all. The lack of dual card slot can almost be forgiven, almost based on the size of the camera, but remembering the price point it comes at, it makes you wish that it was actually there. There's no 4K 60, even with a minor crop and a record limit or something to give you the option to have it, and you still get a 1.2x crop in 4K 30 frames a second, and you're only able to use the full sensor readout in full frame when you're in 4K 24 frames a second or less if you're not in the high recording frame rate modes. And with that being said, that is pretty much the same recording modes as the A7 III, so there's no progress there. And again, where there's also no progress is the bit rate and the bit depth, which personally I think at least in the 4K 24 frames a second mode and the 1080p up to 60 frames a second mode, Sony should have even given, even if there was a record limit for heat management reasons or whatever, Sony should have given at least a 420 internally with 10-bit option, and then enabled full 422 10-bit externally via the HDMI to a recorder like the Ninja V, but yet again, we're still limited to 8-bit. Also, the last mention, from what I've seen as well, the EVF experience is really not that great at all. Now, it's funny, with all these things said, these are not the things that really make me sad about what Sony are doing with this camera. Yes, we can agree for the longest time, it's felt like Sony has really not cared about their APS-C line, and I think this new A7 compact A7C sends that message home big time. How I see it is, imagine with all the power they have now from what they've been able to achieve with the A7S III and now with the A7C, if they even focus 70 to 8% of that into a new pro body APS-C camera, then man, they would really cause problems for companies like Fuji, who really have the APS-C hybrid body down to a T and only look to make it better and better with future camera bodies coming out. But that's just the issue. Sony really doesn't care for their APS-C line, and I really hope I'm wrong. Why I hope I'm wrong is because there's all to play for and all to come out in the next 2 to 3 years, but I get this feeling it's the same energy Lumix are on that they've taken on, where they're focusing so much more on full frame than their smaller crop sensors, which I still believe have amazing potential when it comes to looking at things like video production in a mirrorless hybrid camera. Look, like I said, it's strange. For someone like me that loves the progress in tech and overall better usability, I should be jumping head over heels, not holding on to the past and what's happening. With what they've been able to achieve, what they've been able to achieve here is amazing. Don't get me wrong. But now the question is, do you get double the camera versus the A6600 on this A7C, all in the name of full frame? And I guess depending on who you are, some might be able to say yes, especially if you're leaning a bit more towards the photo side of the balance when being a hybrid shooter. But for me, it feels like the closing and the slow death of another crop sensor system, and it looks like Sony's the one that's really doing it and sending the message across. And yes, I know E-mount is flexible and it's interchangeable within the Sony ecosystem, but I still want to see the focus on APS-C bodies and the progression of it.